Hello and welcome to the Caring View, the first of our live chat shows around social care, spreading positivity throughout the sector. I want to introduce my fellow hosts tonight, my fellow friends, my fellow colleagues, people I've met during this pandemic who have really changed the way I see social care and have really made me think about my career moving forwards. And I think we can all agree have made us all think that social care itself needs to think about itself moving forwards. And I really think that this show is going to help us change the way people see social care, especially once they hear the fantastic opinions and views that these people have. So I've got with me tonight Mark Tarps, Donna Pearpoint and Dawn Bunter. Before we get to hear a bit about everybody, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us. This is our first live show, so please bear with us, but we are going to be here every week on a Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. We are live, so comments, questions, please shove them in the comments section, and where we can, we will answer them as we get to go along. So I will start. My name is Adam. I've been in social care for the last 12 years. I've been in a managerial role for 10 years. And since 2017, I've been an active campaigner for residents' rights within care homes and family carers. Since the pandemic, I've done a lot of work nationally in promoting the rights of people living in care and the fact that they aren't institutions and that life needs to continue as normal. I do a lot of media work. I do a lot of peer-to-peer support. I do a lot of my own actual job, you know, on top of everything that you see us do publicly. We do have full-time jobs. And I just want to add that although we are here tonight talking as industry leaders, as people do call us, our views and opinions are separate to the roles that we hold. You know, they aren't necessarily shared by our employers, and we're not here tonight representing them. We're here representing ourselves and representing the sector. I think the next natural choice to go to, the superstar of the group, will be Mark Tarps. Mark, do you want to tell everyone about yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Adam. I don't see myself as a superstar, but thank you very much. Yes, so I have been working in social care for 16 years and managing for the last 13. So I started off working with people with learning disabilities in a small home and pursued a career in social care. I've worked across various different parts of the sector, so elderly care, learning disabilities within care homes and domiciliary care, and currently working as a regional support manager. During COVID, for the majority, I was managing a learning disability care home. And yeah, had the great pleasure of meeting you three. And yeah, I genuinely mean that, you know, through the media work we were doing and the campaigning, you know, I think a lot of the time our lines crossed, and we were quite often on the same shows and the same radio stations. And yeah, it's been a real privilege to get to know you and to do this. I'm really excited about what this brings.
I think this is going to be something that's echoed by all four of us tonight. Is this genuine camaraderie, this rapport we've got with each other is incredible. Dawn, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself? Let the public know who you are.
Yes, Adam, thank you. So my name's Dawn and I'm the registered manager of a residential dementia service in Norfolk. I've worked in social care since 1996, since the day I left school, having spent a few years working in the NHS. I've been a registered manager for around 5 to 6 years and mainly worked in turnaround projects where they are inadequately rated by the Care Quality Commission. I'd like to echo what Mark says because I did feel quite alone with the visiting. So when I first started having visits into the care home, I kind of felt like I was the only one kind of breaking the rules and allowing people to come in and visit their families. And it was really exciting and it felt like I was getting a lot of support from you guys and enabling me and enabling my confidence to keep going and doing more alongside the staff team.
Brilliant. Well, it's lovely to have you here, Dawn, and you know it's great to have met you and now have this friendship which we hope is long lasting. Finally, Donna, do you want to say a bit about yourself, Donna?
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Donna and I am the manager of a nursing care home in Sheffield, which is a private individual charity run home. I'm the oldest member of the group, so I have got the longest running social care. So I started in 1991 when Mark wasn't even born, doing my nursing. I qualified in 94, and all I've ever done since then is care homes and social care. I've been a manager now for the last 19 years. Totally passionate about elderly care, and this pandemic really brought to the forefront how elderly people were being forgotten, but very passionate about everything to do with social care. And these other three people on the screen, who a year ago I would never have known who they are. We are literally from 4 different points in England. You would never even imagine that we'd have got together. But the strength that we've given each other and the friendship that we've made has made us want to do this and spread that kind of friendship a bit wider, and hopefully spread some positivity about health and social care.
I mean, completely, Donna. And for those who don't know, Donna was also the first manager that I interviewed for COVID Care Stories. It's a channel that I run, alongside this, where we interview people with experiences of care during the pandemic. And the responses that we've had to your story, Donna, about what you've achieved through the pandemic, your initiative and your forward thinking regarding visiting, I think it made people really feel that there are other people out there doing what we do, and people aren't alone and aren't afraid to share what they are doing for fear of backlash or regulatory action or whatever it may be, whatever's concerning people. Your story was there as a shining light for people, and I thought that was a fantastic interview. And ever since then, we've been on WhatsApp every single night chatting, and like you say, I don't think we ever thought that we would connect with people from around the country like we are doing now, planning for a wonderful get together once all the restrictions are lifted. It's going to be amazing. So I think tonight, for our first episode, what we really want to do is give you an insight, obviously, to who we are. We've done that with a bit of a little introduction, and we want to talk about our experiences throughout the pandemic, what it's thrown at us, how we've coped, how we've managed, the obstacles we've had to overcome, our highlights, our lowlights, and individual experiences throughout this. I'm actually not going to go first on this one, because I do want to come back to you, Donna, and ask, what has it been like for you? Because I know you're not afraid of talking about this. We've spoken about this before. You've had outbreaks, you've had the worst of it throughout this pandemic. I can sit here nice and happy thinking we've never had COVID in the home, but you've had it. You've had people, pass away. You've had it difficult. So what's it been like for you? What's your experience been during COVID?
Yeah, it's been tough. We haven't actually had anybody die from COVID, but I certainly do feel that I kind of sort of personally let everybody down. So I made a promise to my relatives and my residents and everybody at the beginning of this that nobody was going to die of COVID. I don't know how I knew I was going to do that, but I just knew that somehow I'd got to make some kind of promise and keep people safe. And for the first year, we managed to do that. And I managed to do it by being quite bold and quite strong as a person. I'm sure that many managers, if you are listening to this, or anybody in social care, will remember a year ago, back in April and May, when we probably all received phone calls from NHS hospitals telling us that we had to take admissions. We had a duty of care to the NHS to take admissions into our home. Please bear in mind, this was when nobody knew really what COVID was. There was no such thing as testing. We had no idea whether these people were positive, negative, or anything. And I very, very strongly, against probably what a lot of people would thought was right, was closed my doors and said I wouldn't have anybody in. And I managed to keep everybody safe for an entire year. And it then came into my home, and it came in via a staff member. And we sadly had 13 staff and 6 residents test positive. If someone had told me a year ago that that would happen, I'd have said, no, it won't. And it is only, and I know this for a fact, that if it wasn't for the vaccine, it would have been a different story. But luckily, everybody survived. Everybody recovered. Bearing in mind that one of the residents was 97, end-stage dementia. If it had been pre-Christmas, there is absolutely no way that that gentleman would have survived. And it was purely by the grace of God and timing that actually everybody survived. But it made me realise how easy that it could get into the home. You could be the best manager in the world. You could be doing everything to keep people safe, and it can still get into the home. But I personally felt I'd let everybody down because I'd spent an entire 12 months with this responsibility on my head, on my shoulders. And I don't think anybody, apart from a manager in a care home, can empathise with that. I know you three can. You three have been a brick to me during this. Absolutely been my rock. And, it was just devastating to me. And I know that, you three have had, similar incidents. You've had the same pressures put on you to keep everybody safe. And I don't think anybody realises that in health and social care, it has very much been on our individual heads and shoulders to do that. And it's been a tough year.
Yeah. And I think you give yourself, I know what it's like. I know you're feeling that it's your fault or you felt responsible for it. But I don't think people realise how little support there was for us during the first 9 months of the pandemic. I mean, heck, it was last August, towards the end of last August, that the government had said they weren't going to do regular testing in care homes after they said that they were going to do it. So, we were up in arms. We had no idea what was going on. And our staff were showing up every single day, supporting those that we support. And it comes in through the staff. And yet then they're vilified. It's their fault. They're the ones that are the bad guys for bringing it in the home. Well, if they weren't coming in the home to do the support, it's a double-ended sword, isn't it? And it's a shame, really. Mark, I mean, I saw you nodding your head, and I saw Dawn nodding her head throughout that. Do you agree? What's your view? How's it been for yourself? Because you're very different, aren't you? You were learning disabilities throughout the pandemic. I know you've changed your role now. You're a Big Shot regional, but before then, you were learning disabilities. So, how was it for you? What was the differences?
Yeah, I think for me, like Donna, we got through the first lockdown absolutely fine. It was the second one that hit into the home. I think for me it was people with learning disabilities are out and about in the community all the time, and I always had a vision for the service that I didn't want people that were living there and using the service to just be sat inside when they were so capable and so young. So they were literally out of the door at like 9:30 in the morning pre-COVID, and they didn't get back until like dinner time, to then suddenly be stuck inside having to do in-house activities that they just really weren't used to. It was tough. I think for me it was like Donna said, there wasn't the support for managers, and I think I put together those COVID documents, and I think for me that was one real positive. I think my family and my children had both, or all of them, had moved out of the family home, but I think that gave me something to focus on. It gave me something to support other managers with. And like Donna said, it was a tough place to be. It was a lonely place to be. So to be able to just feel like I was helping in some way in other homes, gave me great satisfaction. I think for me, with learning disabilities, it was just the injustice from government about the testing and the vaccine and how they weren't supported. It was a real low for me. And I think, it made me want to speak out and do more. And obviously that's what I did. And I wasn't afraid to speak out and, be the voice for people with a learning disability, both within my service, but also within the wider community. But it came with a lot of backlash, and I know you three have all had it as well, on Twitter and Facebook messages and people emailing. I think people that had family members with a learning disability were really positive, but other people were, the messages were hard. And I think, I'm thick-skinned, so I was able to take it. But, there are days when you used to think, is it really worth all this, people emailing the care home and phoning the CQC or phoning the safeguarding teams, and could really damage the reputation of both the business that you're working in or the company, but also our own livelihoods, our rating with the CQC. And yeah, I think the positive for me would be meeting you guys, most definitely, and, having that support. But also, hearing from other managers as well about, what they've been through. And I think in social care, it's definitely brought a lot of managers and deputy managers together a lot more. I think there's a lot more collaboration going on within the sector, which, is a definite positive. But, yeah, so that would be my highs and lows.
Yeah. I think Dawn, if you're willing to share, I know you had a very tough time at the beginning, didn't you? And I do believe you're as a new manager as well there.
Yeah, so I took over the service, and 2 weeks later, the director closed the home, mid-February. And then we had an outbreak. We had a gentleman go to hospital and come back. So we had an outbreak of what they deemed at the time as suspected COVID, because there was no testing. We didn't know who had it. We were told not to wear PPE, that wasn't a requirement at the time. And in the end, we lost 9 residents, which was devastating and heartbreaking. And I felt exactly the same as you, because I walked in that service and didn't know a single relative. Nobody had got to meet me. I had a relatives meeting booked to meet everybody. And all of a sudden, there was this woman on the end of the phone ringing them up saying, your mum, dad, brother has gone into hospital with suspected COVID-19. And it was the most horrendous time of my entire career. I remember playing dominoes with one of our lovely residents at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by 1:30 in the afternoon, his lips were blue. And that was the fact that we were living with and working with for months. And then we were told there was this ironclad ring that surrounded us, which we spent many months searching for, and I'm still looking for now. But it was the most horrendous time. And we were informing people like Public Health England that we suspected this was going on, because by the time our residents were admitted to hospital, they were then tested. So they were then ringing us up and saying, yeah, it's positive for COVID. But we couldn't test anybody else that was in the home, and we couldn't test any staff unless they were symptomatic. So it was really hard in the face of, you were walking around the building not knowing whether you had it. And you were doing personal care, and you were assisting residents with their lunch. You were spending 5-6 hours on a particular area of the home, not knowing whether you had COVID yourself or not personally. And that was what the staff struggled with. The staff struggled with not knowing, whether they were bringing it into the home, or if they had it, or if they were taking it home to their families. Yeah. They didn't know whether they were then going home and taking it to their mums and dads, or their children, or their paramedic husbands, or their nurse wives. Nobody had a clue what we were doing. And I think it got to the point where we were kind of 3 weeks in, and I called the infection control team to get testing and to say, we've got an outbreak. We've been told we must have one. And they said, we didn't even hear from Public Health England to know that you had a suspected outbreak. So by the time all that was done, everybody tested negative. So it was horrendous. And there was times when I would drive to work and I would pull over and think, oh no, I'm not doing a very good job. And I think I resigned 3 times in the space of 2-3 months.
What, resigned in your head, or actually put your resignation in?
Oh no, I actually wrote it. Because I didn't feel like I was keeping people safe. I didn't feel like no matter what we did as a service, we were keeping people safe. Do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? Do we wear gloves? Do we wear aprons? Do we open the windows? Do we close the windows? What do we do? Nobody was supporting us as a service at all. And we were dumbstruck as to where we stood continuously, day in, day out. And by the time we got tested, everybody was negative. And they said, oh, well, you've done really well. No, it doesn't feel like we've done well, because we've lost 9 people who we've all regarded as family. That doesn't feel like well, the other home up the road, they're in a lot of trouble. No, this still isn't us doing well. This is positive that we've lost 9 people, irrelevant of the home up the road still has COVID. But So that was a massive low.
Yeah.
But my high has to be one of our gentlemen, and we were on Look East News, and his daughter came in and he said to her, "You've saved my life," as he hugged her, because he had missed her so much. And seeing him on the local news and seeing his daughter say what a massive difference it had made to her life, not his, at 96 years old, to hers, was my high.
Yeah. And I think we all felt that, because we were lucky enough, I say lucky enough, we were forward thinking. We had all of our reunions well into the latter half of last year, didn't we? We got all our reunions then and our close contacts then. I mean, this ring of protection was something, it's a point of contention for everyone. I remember back in April last year, we were told categorically we cannot request people to be tested for COVID when they are discharged back to your home, period. You can't ask us to test people. We can't test people when they're being sent to you. And it just didn't marry. I remember one day we got guidance at 2:00 in the afternoon saying everyone must wear masks at all times. Masks have to be on at all times. Come 6:00, they'd gone back on it and said, actually, no, you only need to wear masks if you've got a positive case in your home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed about, I think, one weekend. PP guidance came out at about 9:00 on Friday night, and over the course of the weekend, I believe it changed 4 or 5 times from to the Monday morning. I literally didn't know whether I was going left or right. Are we masks on, masks off, or what on earth were we doing? Which categories were wearing masks? It was just like, we just didn't know what we were doing. It was almost a point like we were running around like headless chickens. And bear in mind, at that point, where were we getting the PPE from? We all remember getting our one box of, what was it, 200, 400, 600 masks from the NHS.
Out of date masks.
Out of date face masks that were meant to last us for the entire pandemic. I mean, okay, we now have the PPE portal, but we're not talking about now. We're talking about, last year. And yeah, get me off my soapbox if you want to, but we're talking about last April and May. So come on, let's bring it in. Dawn's just said there, she lost 9 residents. She had all that responsibility on her head. She was getting no support. Where was this ring fence? What was everybody doing at 8:00 on a Thursday night? Clap for carers.
Yeah. And in fact, funny you should say that. I did a podcast really early on into the pandemic last year with the BBC. I think it was around May time. And they were asking me what I thought about the clap. And I said, the clap, it's wonderful, it's fantastic, they're celebrating the NHS, but the recognition isn't there. People don't believe behind the clap. It's something they can do on the Thursday night because everything else is shut. And as soon as the clap finishes, we are just going to get chastised. We're going to be vilified by the government, and that this care home crisis is going to be our fault. No, you're being cynical. 2 weeks later, the clap stops. Boris Johnson stands up in Parliament and goes, right, care homes are the problem. They're the ones that have caused all of this. And this has been the issue. And yet people still say to us, but we stood and clapped for you. So you should feel respected. I mean, I'm not going to speak for all 4 of us here, but the clap wasn't my favourite thing during the pandemic. I don't know about anyone else.
No, I didn't clap. Yeah, I'll be honest.
To start with.
I think for me,
I went out and clapped and everything.
Yeah, see, I was the complete opposite. I found it really embarrassing. I think the only person in my street that worked in social care, if I got home and everybody was outside clapping, I think it was just awkward. I think because, I don't know whether it's just because I thought, I'm doing my job at the end of the day. But also, I think it was more, people were out there with their phones and videoing it. And I know straight away that it was going on to Instagram or it was going on to TikTok. And I think some people were just doing it for the likes and the comments, and it wasn't actually a genuine thing. And I personally found it, really awkward to just be around.
Yeah, I mean, the disingenuity was rife during the beginning of the clap, and everyone clapping. But I mean, even Matt Hancock stood there on his podium wearing a care badge on his lapel, and then the week later it disappeared, and no one could purchase one for 9 months. It was all so false. Care.
It just was. It just felt. I mean, I know it was a good thing that was happening. I know it was bringing the nation together during a pandemic, but it was just NHS. And please do not get me wrong. I think the NHS have done an absolutely fantastic job during this pandemic, honestly, and they still are. And I cannot imagine how anybody who has worked in intensive care, in all that full PPE with the FFP3 masks on, respirators, whatever, they have done an absolutely fantastic job. But at the beginning, it just really felt that it was all the NHS, rainbows in everybody's windows, rainbows posted on pebbles, rainbow flags. And it was almost like we were going, hello, health and social care. We are also here. I know you can't see us because we work behind closed doors. We work in care homes that are obviously nobody knows about. They drive past them and don't know they exist. We work out in the community. You know, we work with people who don't want to be in, you know, be seen in society. And it just really felt that we weren't getting any recognition. And Adam's quite right. Along came Matt Hancock with his little green care badge. I think we received ours eventually in November. Yeah, it was quite hilarious when they eventually arrived, actually. Yeah,
it's so true. It's so true. And, you know, my highlight, I think, of the entire thing, I mean, don't get me wrong, yeah, reuniting people, making sure that people were connected and supported and all of that, being COVID-free, absolute highlight. But for me, it has to be Susanna Reid throwing at Matt Hancock live on TV. Why don't you talk to Adam Pennell from because he'll be able to tell you how to manage this. And, you know, they've been managing visiting throughout the pandemic absolutely fine. You know, have any of us ever heard from the government? I mean, I know they sit down with the big companies, those with franchises in 200 plus care homes, but has anyone actually stopped to talk to the people that have succeeded through this and managed this safely? They haven't. You know, and you're right, Donna, the NHS is fantastic. The NHS is the most wonderful thing this country could possibly have. But so is social care. And the idea of this chat show is actually to bring that recognition to us. You know, we're not just a job for job's sake. We don't come into this just so we can earn money because the pay is pitiful, because the funding's pitiful, because there is no integrated care. There is none of this ICS that they keep talking about. There is not this respect that the healthcare system gets. You know, I mean, we recently did a poll as part of a subgroup that Mark and I are part of, and we actually did, you know, what's your knowledge of social care services? And we threw NHS in there as a red herring. And people were like, oh, yeah, I know all about the NHS as a social care service. And it's like, but you don't, because the NHS isn't social care, it's healthcare. And it just shows the severe lack of understanding of what social care is and how important we are to the country. And outbreaks or not, visiting or not, you know, everyone's approached this pandemic differently, but we have all shown up to work every single day and done the best that we possibly can do. And I think everyone needs the recognition that they get. You know, they deserve as much as they possibly can do. And between the four of us, we've done a ton of media recently, haven't we? I mean, Mark's done record-breaking petitions and what have you, and comes home covered in a towel when the clap's going on to his, you know, celebrity status. I mean, Donna, you're making a name for yourself as a writer as it is at the moment, and Dawn, exactly the same. But I don't know how you feel. I just feel the media is still negative. You know, no matter how much we do, no matter how much positivity we get, you still hear the negative. I mean, I do John's campaign, don't I? Ambassador for that, and I admin the group on Facebook, and every single day, multiple times, I'm you know, authorizing posts of, have you seen this in the paper about this care home that's done this? Have you seen this negative thing about a care home? And where's the positivity? You know, am I wrong in this? Am I alone in this? Is the media fair?
No.
No.
And I think that the instruction on it is to go for the negative, because the negative is the story. You're not going to have, they're not going to be able to create or build like they can on a negative story. And working in inadequate care homes, and having done for a long time, that does construct emotional reaction from the public, because it's negative, and nobody wants to see negative in a care home, and I get that, but at the same time, people emotionally react to what they see. That is what sells the story. So the positivity isn't always going to, people look at it and think, oh, lovely, that's a really nice home, but they don't emotionally react the same way. And that's what it's about with the media. It's more about their emotional reactions that they'll get from the general public. And I think that's why it's easier.
Yeah. And I think some of the negativity has been really uncalled for. And I think, you know, we touched on it about the guidance that just wasn't there. And I think it's the same, you know, I remember a bit like Dawn said, you know, when you were going in, or it might have been Donna, when you were going in blind and you didn't know whether you had COVID and you didn't know whether you were spreading it, you know, to other residents, to your colleagues, or bringing it home. And, you know, you'd phone public health. And even to this day, you know, you can ring public health and they're like, no, you need to ring the local authority. You ring the local authority, no, you need to phone the Department of Health and Social Care. You phone, and you're just bounded around between, you know, 3 different organisations, and nobody gives you a definitive answer. And that's been the whole way through COVID. And I think for a lot of care services in domiciliary and within care homes, that's where half of the negativity has come from. Because I think there are people out there and managers and directors that just do not know what to do for the best. And I think, you know, we've had to make decisions off our own back. And I think, touching on what you've all said, I remember having to write a contingency plan, choosing, you know, which residents I would prioritise if COVID came into the whole home. Something I never, ever imagined I would ever have to do.
Yeah. And you know, I don't want to, I don't know, bring on more work for us here, because I think, you know, my CQC inspector at the moment, disclaimer, is fantastic. I think she's wonderful. However, do we all remember that email we got at the beginning of the pandemic last year, where it was basically, we can't come out and inspect anymore, and we're not going to be able to do this, so we trust you're going to make the right decisions. And then that was it. Just complete silence for months. You know, don't get me wrong, I know they came back and they've done the ICFs, and, you know, they've done infection control inspections, and they are still doing focused inspections, and they're now going back to the 5-point inspections. But March, April last year, we got that email. It was, you'll make these decisions and we trust they're going to be the right ones. So go on.
Yeah. I've never in my career, of which has been twice as long as you 3 young people on this chat show, written my own policies, written my own risk assessments, written my own contingency plans, the things that we've had to do and been instructed to do. And the sad bit of it is, and I know, you know, I know we're all governed and overseen by CQC, but I've already heard it from our fellow managers. You know, we meet up sometimes. We work on a care home managers forum with Rights for Residents. And we've already heard that some inspections have happened and they've looked at these risk assessments and visiting policies and basically pulled holes in them. And it's kind of like, hang on a minute, you know, I'm a qualified nurse. I know my stuff on nursing. I've been a manager for a long time. I'm not a policy writer. You know, I didn't go to university to write policies. I've done everything to keep everybody safe. I've got my risk assessments. I've got all my paperwork. Please don't now pull me down just because I've not crossed a T and dotted an I. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realise, what we've been doing. So it's not just been keeping all our residents safe, all our staff safe, all our families safe, you know, all our relatives happy and safe. It's doing all this background work. And we all know, and I'm sure that everybody else who runs a care home knows, that we have all been doing way above and beyond what our contracted hours are, because we've had to. We've had no choice, you know, to do that. Yeah, it's been tough, hasn't it, guys?
I mean, I know you're saying that you've never, you know, had to write your own policies and procedures. It's something that, you know, Mark and I have done for probably quite a lot of our careers. And I think for me, the one thing that I found difficult for a lot of providers, and I think relatives found, especially when we talk about visiting, because this is, you know, how we all ultimately met, wasn't it? It was our approach to visiting and openness during COVID. You would log in, you'd go to the guidance and you'd find the guidance, and it'd be like, right, dynamic risk assessment. You must do a dynamic risk assessment. Oof. Where do we find that then? Where is this risk assessment for this worldwide pandemic that we've never experienced, and we've no idea what's going on? We don't know what you expect of us. No one's giving us any support. So it was basically down to people like myself and Mark and other managers who were going, right, what would we expect? Let's write it. Let's put it together. Let's share it, peer-to-peer support, and let's try and support people through this, because there was no official support out there for us. And I think if you phone regulators and people like that, it'd be a case of, well, we can't endorse document, but we just think you should be, risk assessing what it should be for you. I mean, Mark, you've been a shining light to a number of managers. Do you want to tell us about your journey with writing policies and how you've supported people?
Yeah, do you know, I touched on it earlier. I was living alone and I had not loads of spare time, but I had the evenings and, I'd have weekends available when I wasn't working. And even to this day, because I know there's still so many managers out there writing policies on the guidance, is the amount of time that we were taken off the floor to sit behind a computer to write document after document to keep it up to date with guidance. And in the back of my mind, the only thing I was thinking is, if every manager in the whole of the United Kingdom is sat in an office when they could be focusing on their care staff, on their residents, and that's all we wanted to do, was make sure that everybody was reassured, support people with their mental health, support residents that, didn't know what was going on, and explaining to families and relatives. And, I thought, if I can just take on these documents and work with other managers, write these documents as a baseline, they can build on them and just get them out. And that's what I did. And, I just wanted it so that people could spend more time with the residents and the staff, because, it did really affect, because to me, care is about being with the people, not about writing documents. And like Donna said, not everybody's got experience in writing policies and procedures. And and I do worry now, even with the changing guidance all the time, and it still changes, week in, week out, how people are staying up to date. But it is, like you said, Adam, there was nowhere to go for advice. I remember writing my first contingency plan, and I think I based it on yours, Adam, that you sent me. But I remember before getting yours, I phoned the local authority. No, we don't know what to include in it. I phoned the CQC. No, you're going to have to think of it. I don't know what to include. Going back to like January, I didn't even know what COVID was. Before the pandemic, and this is honestly true, I never ever watched the news and I never followed the news. So as soon as COVID started, I had to get my knowledge up on what it was, and subscribe to every Google alert, and even now I've not unsubscribed, but I wake up to like 300 emails about COVID, and then to go through all those emails and work out, what's going to affect the sector, what's going to affect, the services, and trying to keep up to date with that, it's incredibly hard and tough. And I don't think, people outside of social care, I don't think see that side of things.
Yeah,
I don't see
completely. I think what other people don't understand is we look to our peers. So we look, I've sat in ICS meetings for years now in our local county, and we look to our health practitioners, we look to our peers for support and understanding. I remember just coming back from London from John's campaign annual meet. So we're talking mid-February now of 2020, and we were already hand gelling then. And I was at an ICS meeting, Bickerstaff House in Blackpool, and it was a case of, right, so we're going to have a couple of quiet months now because this COVID thing's causing a bit of a problem. But once it's out of the way and everything's back to normal, we'll continue with the ICS meetings. And, right, okay. And then literally, not even a month later, we were all in lockdown. Every shop was shut, schools were closed, people were dying left, right, and centre. And these were the people we were looking at for guidance and support on this. So we weren't left high and dry thinking, right, let's start getting this written down. And like you say, Mark, taken away from quality time that we could be spending with people. I mean, it has been exhausting. And I know I keep talking to you, Mark, but I want to come back to you. And you were saying then about how you were on your own writing these policies. You're married with 3 kids. So how's that been? You took that decision to be on your own throughout the pandemic, and I think people need to hear this, because I think they think, well, carers can just come and go and they can come in care homes and they're the risks and everything like that. But there are people like you out there who have made the ultimate sacrifice throughout the first year of this pandemic. How's it been? You're reunited now though, aren't you?
I am reunited, yeah. And it was tough, even in the early days, making that decision, sitting down with my wife and saying, I'm not going to get testing. It's not even on the horizon that we're going to get tested. And I remember we had a resident that had symptoms, and it was back in the day, like Dawn said, where there was no PPE. And I remember saying to my care staff, I don't want you going in there and risking your lives. I said, I will go in and I will support him. I'll be here and I'll do the personal care. I'll do the up and close personal, and making that decision was tough, and my kids, my eldest understood, but the other 2 didn't. And, it was making video calls to them, and it was, when are we going to see you? When can we come home? And then for me, being in a house that was so normally so loud to then being in a house that was really quiet was really tough. And going to bed every night, walking past the bedrooms, you know, I would have days where, you know, my mental health's normally really good and I'm really strong, but I would have days where I'd drive to work and just cry, or I'd be watching something on Netflix and just have tears, and for no apparent reason, but I know it was down to that. And I think, you know, that's what in a way inspired me to write those policies and procedures, because I thought, you know, I've got this spare time, I can do that. But I think, you know, like you said, there are so many people that work in social care that moved out of their families, moved into hotels, moved into, you know, other family members' homes that were, you know, lower risk. And, you know, trying to sustain it is incredibly tough. You know, you think, oh, it's only going to be a couple of weeks, and then weeks turn into months. And, you know, I was apart from my family for, I think it was 362 days. And I think if I hadn't have left the care home, I would probably still be apart from them, because the risk is still there. You know, we've got the vaccine, which, you know, is great. And I think unless we did the campaign for learning disabilities, I dread to even think, you know, where learning disability homes would be. They'd probably still be, you know, a year down behind. Yeah. You know, they'd probably only just be getting PPE probably and the testing. And, you know, I think there are still people out there that are separated, you know, from the people they love because they want to protect them. And I think, yeah, it's definitely not heard enough within, you know, within the media about how many people have, you know, been separated, whether it's for a week, a month, a year, or however long it is. Yeah, and hats off to them, because it is tough.
I mean, I will interject just slightly at the moment to play devil's advocate and go, there is a problem within social care, and there are homes out there that have issues, and we're not all perfect, and I don't want to absolve ourselves from any sort of inconsistencies within the sector. You know, there are issues out there, there are problems out there, but this is why we're doing what we do. We're trying to support people the best we can to eradicate that and help social care move forwards and really move on to something different. I mean, we thought we were all coming out of it towards the end of last year. You know, we were coming out of the real heavy part of the pandemic. We hadn't yet gone into the newest lockdown. We were all getting positive media. And then we got a documentary come out on a terrestrial TV channel, which I think kicked everyone in the stomach a bit. How did we all feel? I won't name it. I won't name the chap, bless him. You know, it served a purpose. I understand why relatives needed that documentary out there to show that visiting wasn't going on. But especially for myself, I was sat there thinking, no one came to talk to me. No one wanted to see how we've been doing it and how positive it is. And no one's wanting to talk to other managers. And then you get people going, well, other managers won't come out and discuss it. And, well, part of it, they don't want to come out and discuss it because they don't want to be subjected to negative media and, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. How did that documentary make everyone feel?
I'll quite happily say something, because I think going back, you know, to what Dawn said earlier, you know, that we know that negative press sells. We know that it does. However, a lot of us have been on programmes like Good Morning Britain, and they've always tried to balance an opinion. So they've had one person that has one view and one person that has another. And I think that was the big problem with this programme. And I think that's what frustrated us most, because we were doing the visiting. We were trying to shout as loud as possible that it can be done. Guidance is guidance. It can be done. Families can be happy. People can be reunited. And all that programme showed was the negativity. It showed some absolutely sad, awful, horrendous stories of visiting, which wasn't untrue. It was true. They were taking place. They were true stories that were being told, but there was no balance to it. And that's one thing we're trying to do now. We're trying to address that balance. We're trying to show that with negative, there can be positive. With positives, there can be negatives. And that's how I very much felt. It was like the half an hour was over and done with. And it was like, is that it? Is there a part 2? Is it on tomorrow night as well? Are you now going to show what can be done? And it just, boom, that's it, got cut off. But I think, like Dawn said, is it because they didn't want to show the good stuff? Because there weren't enough managers, you know, like us, who are happy to say something, because of then all the massive backlash that we'd get afterwards. And that's what's just such a shame, that, you know, I think there's just too many people out there that it's easier to be risk averse, and we've certainly learned that in the last year, definitely.
But we are all Twitter active. I mean, Dawn, your name continuously popped up on my Twitter feed throughout the first part of the visiting crisis, because it was literally a case of, and I'm doing it too, listen to us, we're doing it. And you were basically there going, I'm doing it, but no one listened. Did you feel like you were being listened to when you were trying to tell people what was going on?
No, and or the only thing they'd listen to, or the backlash that I'd receive is, why are you doing that? Why? You're going to bring COVID in. You're going to kill everybody. At one point, I was even told that I was going to end up in jail for manslaughter because I was inviting people into the home. And you'd then try and explain in respect of the negativity. Well, we're doing this and we're doing that and we're doing this. Well, no, you're going to end up in really big trouble and you should be reported. So I think, like Donna said, there was, okay, we wanted the positivity in the media, but when I contacted the lovely gentleman who made that documentary and said, hang on a minute, you didn't show any positive visiting. He said, oh, I did. The husband and wife that were outside. No, that's outside. That's not somebody coming in and giving their husband or wife a hug or helping his wife with a drink.
No.
Or actually engaging. That's outside. He took her for a walk. That's not a visit. But that was his response, and then that was cut off. And then when we try and comment and say, well, actually, we're doing this, do you want to speak to us? We got cut off then as well, and he didn't want to talk to us. So I think to him, he was showing visiting, albeit it was outside. But to him, that was the positive aspect of it.
Yeah, and I think what they don't realise is we're not there going, shove us on TV because we want to be popular, we want to be famous, we want all this attention. The amount of people I've had come to me since we were in the media going, I've seen you on TV doing visiting, and I tell you what, can I have your care plan because I want to do it at my home, and I want to implement something similar. Yeah. That's what it's about. It's inspiring and supporting others and showing them actually. Yeah, the guidance says one thing, but this is a loophole and exploit it because we can reconnect people. We know our care homes, our staff, our residents. We know our jobs. We know what we're doing. Trust in yourselves again. Stop being so risk averse and give people that hope and that support out there that they can see, well, actually, other people are doing it. Let's do it ourselves. But the hate you get from it has been incredible. And I'm not going to lie, I've even had it from fellow managers. You're playing in a bad light on social care, you're making us all look bad. And it's, we're supposed to be here to support each other and, together work through this. I am conscious about the time, and we could just sit here and talk to each other all night long, but we've only got around 10 minutes left. So we've not really touched upon the new visiting guidance that came in yesterday. I think everyone knows our stance on visiting, so at the moment I don't think we need to talk about it. But I'm going to start by saying I took Monday off. I'm not going to lie. April 12th, I took it off. Things were opening up. Zoos were open on the outside. You could meet up with your family, up to 6 people, and do what you wanted and everything. And I'm going to admit I was selfish and I took it off. We had a day and we went to a monkey park. And it was the most fantastic thing for the last 12 months, not being able to do anything. I've had one dinner out in 12 months in a restaurant. And it's something so simple as being able to sit on the grass in public, eating a picnic with family that you've not seen for donkeys.
And visiting visiting all your relatives, Adam, behind bars, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Donna. It felt like I was going home. Oh.
Adam chooses to go to a monkey park when everybody else goes to visit their relatives. We love Adam.
Well, no, honestly, I was thinking to myself, we were driving home. It was, I can't remember where it was. We were driving home. I'm going, oh, what a wonderful day, all these monkeys out in the nature. And we're literally driving through our town, and everyone's in the pub gardens having a pint in like the pub yards. And I'm thinking to myself, do you know what? Once upon a day, I'd probably sat here judging, but the sight of people smiling and laughing, seeing people together, it was something so incredibly heartwarming. What have you all got planned now that the world's open? Well, I say the world, the country, because of our amazing vaccine scheme. What have you all got planned coming up with these easements?
Well, unlike you, Adam, I'm planning to go to the hairdressers. Some of us aren't quite so follically challenged. How dare I? So yeah, I think us three definitely the roots are showing. So yeah, slightly desperate for the hairdressers, but it's stuff like that. You know, it's crazy, isn't it? If someone had said to us, I know it's more than a year. We keep saying a year ago now, and I know it's more than a year ago. If someone had said to us, you won't be able to do this, and this, it's almost like going back to war times. Things like this have never happened. You know, pubs haven't been shut, shops haven't been shut. We've never been like this. You know, driving to work and there's a sign saying, you know, stay local, lockdown, don't do this. You know, in years to come, way beyond where we will be alive, there'll be children at school learning about this and kind of horrified what we've been through. So to actually say, I'm looking forward to going to the hairdressers next Tuesday before our next video sounds absolutely bonkers, because it's something that I normally do every 6 weeks, you know, without doing it. However, hats off to all out there, and I think, you know, massive shout out to all the shops, the hairdressers, all the businesses. And I said from the very beginning, I feel very privileged because I've been to work every single day during this pandemic. I've had my friends, I've had my colleagues. I haven't been in the same four walls shut at home. I haven't had to work from home. I haven't had my business closed down. So, you know, yes, I'm looking forward to going to my hairdressers, and shout out to all those businesses out there that have had a really, really tough year, because, you know, it has been a bad year. But yeah, mine's going to the hairdressers.
Mark's smiling. Is it something similar?
Yeah, I cannot wait to get back to the barbers. And, you know, I phoned them yesterday to see their opening times. They were like, oh, it's bookable appointments only. And they're full for the next 3 weeks. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. So I'm going to have to either go to another barber's, but yeah, I just keep pushing it back so it looks short, but actually it's just a massive ponytail down my back. But yeah, no, that's all. And, you know, I haven't seen any of my friends in over a year. I think I was so rigid about not doing anything that would affect anything, like the residents in the care home or, you know, my family. So just seeing people outside again, you know, now that I've had the vaccine, they've had the vaccine, yeah, like Donna said, it's going to be, you know, really heartwarming. And I think touching on what Donna said, you know, about the shops, you know, specifically the supermarkets, the whole time during COVID, you know, we didn't have PPE, but we have it now. The hospital had the PPE. And, you know, you visit your local supermarket and, you know, they're there, and I don't think they have anywhere near as much protection as we have working in health and social care. So hats off to them for, you know, keeping the country going, you know, because I know that there's a lot of people out there, if they were in that same position, that just wouldn't have turned up to work, you know, with people coughing in their faces because they were unhappy that you couldn't buy, you know, more than 8 pints of milk or, you know, bulk shop your bread. So yeah, definitely hats off to them.
Toilet roll.
Toilet roll, yes.
Toilet roll,
Yeah.
But who would have thought, you know, that you would never be able to bulk buy, you know, toilet roll? And I remember saying to my staff, because my brother's in Australia, I remember he was like, everybody's bulk buying toilet roll. And I remember going into the care home saying, you need to bulk buy a toilet roll. And they were like, what are you on about? And then literally it was about 2 days later and there was none. And they were like, we wish you had listened to you. Even when I think about it now, it doesn't seem real, does it? It just seems like a script of a movie or a book. It just doesn't seem real.
No. But did anybody else question right at the very beginning, you know, when you went in and there was absolutely no hand wash, not one single bottle of hand wash, didn't you stand there and go, did people not wash their hands before the pandemic?
Yeah. It took a pandemic to show people what personal hygiene was. Yeah. Well, this is how you wash your hands. Sing happy birthday while you do it. Yeah. What about you, Dawn? What have you got planned?
Well, we've got quite a large family, so we're really looking forward to spending time with people, and actually having people over in the garden. And I used to cook for people all the time. Our house was always full. Well, with the amount of children we've got, it's no wonder anyway. But there was constant stream of people in the house, And this year has been quite alien to us because we haven't had the kids' friends in, and we haven't had family round every Sunday, and we haven't seen people all the time. And we've had our son's 18th birthday in lockdown. We've had both of our 40th birthdays in lockdown. So I think it's lots of delayed celebrations as things move on when we can see more people. But at the moment, it's actually seeing people face to face rather than on FaceTime or text message or talking to people on the phone.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw one more into the hat. I was going to put one more thing that we're looking forward onto the table, and that is meeting up together. Because I don't think people realise we've never met. You know, I don't even know if any of you have anything below your shoulders, because all we ever do is see each other on Zoom. I mean, I'm showing you my feet a couple of times because I love flip flops. You know, showing everyone I'm still wearing flip flops. But to actually meet up and see each other is going to be tremendous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be, it's going to be absolutely fab. It really, really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Just got to wait for Donna to finalise where we're actually going to meet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Somewhere around about Coventry, Oxford area is about somewhere in the middle of all of us. But
changes every blooming day.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. But I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed this hour. I hope everybody else certainly has. It's probably felt very much like it's been probably a little bit negative tonight. We certainly don't want that every single week, do we, guys? And we certainly don't want it just focusing on us and care homes. Definitely not. So yeah, we want to kind of sort of open it up to all aspects of social care. So learning disabilities, mental health, domiciliary care, community care, you know, all sorts of things.
Shared accommodation, assisted living. It's all there. And the whole bag, yeah. And you know, we have been a little bit negative. It's been a case of really tonight us just getting to know each everyone on camera so people know who we are. The only thing I want to say, just as one last positive, I know we poo-pooed the clap, I think, a little bit earlier on. I do just want to say, though, a huge, massive thank you to the public, the community, for everything they did do for us early on in the pandemic. I mean, we had people showing up at our doorstep. Local bakers had to close, and they came with 200 bread barms and loaves, and they were stitching masks together for us and making us wash bags for clothes. You know, recently Easter, they dropped off nearly 50 Easter eggs for the care home, and that community support has just been absolutely wonderful, and I appreciate that.
It has.
I will always appreciate that.
The public have been just unbelievably heartwarming, and what people have turned their hands to, people who haven't been working and whatever, you know, they've done so much for us, and that's been so humbling. And I think we've probably had more support from the general public than we have anybody, certainly the government, you know. So yeah, I completely agree with you. You know, massive well done to, you know, all the people out there who supported us. Yeah.
And thank you to you three and us having this platform to be able to do this. So, like we say, we are going to touch on different topics each week. We are going to start having guests coming on board. So if you are watching this on Catch Up and you want to bring your story to us, if it's something that we're discussing and you think it's going to be, you can lend a great opinion to, let us know. It'd be great to have you on. We want to talk to specialists and experts throughout this. We want this to be a platform for everyone in social care, but not just those working in social care. We want people who don't even have anything to do with social care watching this, so that we can really change that public opinion of the sector and showcase the amazing work that we are all doing. So until next Tuesday, it's crazy saying this, that we've got our weekly episodes. Until the next episode of The Caring View, I want to bid you all a good night, and thank you everyone for joining us and watching. So good night, Donna, Mark, Dawn, and everyone else.
Good night.
Night, everybody. Bye.